Political editor Dennis Welch here with the latest on this one.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those issues that you keep seeing story after story after story with that, and already about 6 other governors across the country have issued similar executive orders like the one Hobbs signed this morning. And for anyone not familiar with these prediction markets, these are sites where you can bet on future outcomes on everything from war to the jobs numbers.
Government insiders know a lot of things. They could get a heads up on a new jobs report, or they might catch wind of a scandal that could take down a politician. Until recently, that kind of information wasn't very profitable, but the rise of prediction markets has changed all of that. And Governor Hobbs wants to stop that from happening.
We have to ensure that our state employees are acting at the highest level of ethical standard and not using the information they have as a state employee to personally gain.
The governor's latest order would ban executive branch employees from profiting off insider information on sites like Kalshi or Polymarket. There's no evidence that's happening in Arizona right now, but there's no shortage of stories on the federal level. As an example, Hobbs pointed to an Army soldier who's accused of making more than $400,000 trading on classified information in the lead up to the capture of former Venezuela leader Nicolas Maduro.
We just saw a very high-profile national prosecution around a federal employee who traded on insider information, potentially jeopardizing military operation and service members. We have to ensure that our state employees are acting at the highest level of ethical standard and not using the information they have as a state employee to personally gain.
And all of this might sound like a very sensible reform, but there's a big question about how it will be enforced. Now, on that, the governor was asked, and she wasn't very clear on how her administration plans to police all of this. Back over to you guys.
Very interesting. You would just think on the surface level that it wouldn't be allowed, right?
Yeah. Well, there's already state law in place that would allow, that prohibits state employees from profiting in any way on information that they might have. This is more of a more directed target, directed strike. Should also point out, the governor says that this may just be the first step here in moving forward. She's not sure on whether there could be more legislation coming forward or other executive orders, but she did refer to this as a first step.
Those markets have exploded in popularity very quickly, so not surprised. Thanks, Dennis.